My beloved, let me speak to the ancient part of you, the part that remembers even if your mind has forgotten. There is a law, eternal and bright, that once lived in the heart of every true religion. It was known not by words alone, but by vibration, by soul recognition. And though the centuries have passed like shadows across the earth, this law has never ceased to shine, just as the sun continues to glow behind even the darkest of storm clouds. But oh, how far mankind has wandered from it. The world, once illumined by sages, saints, and Christ-like souls, has turned its gaze outward, chasing rituals and doctrines, forgetting the living presence within. This law is not a rule enforced by dogma. It is a divine rhythm, a spiritual current, a sacred science of return to the infinite. Like sunlight behind a stone wall, always there, always waiting, it has remained hidden, not by malevolence, but by mankind's increasing thirst for the surface of things, the glittering shell of form, forgetting the pearl of truth within. There was a time, lost to the history books, but alive in the memory of the soul, when all religions touched the hem of this universal principle. The rishis of India knew it as Sanatana Dharmathi, eternal truth. The early mystics of Christianity knew it as the path of the single eye. In the quiet temples of Tibet, in the forgotten deserts of the Essenes, it was guarded like a treasure too sacred for the crowds. This spiritual law is not about belief. It is about union. Not about worshiping from afar, but merging into oneness. It teaches that man is not a sinner groveling in dust, but a soul cloaked in forgetfulness, capable of awakening into divinity itself. All the holy scriptures, when seen through the lens of realization, whisper the same truth. The kingdom of God is within you. But to enter that kingdom, there is a science, a method, a precise spiritual law that bridges time and eternity, body and spirit. What is the cost of forgetting such a law? It is the restlessness that haunts even the most devout. It is the endless search for peace in temples built of stone, while the temple within lies dark and unopened. It is the spiritual fatigue of those who pray but do not feel, who chant but do not know, who believe but do not experience. You may have walked 100 paths, tried 1,000 mantras, read the scriptures of East and West, and still felt a longing, unsatisfied, a call, unanswered. That ache within you is the echo of this hidden law trying to call you home. I tell you, not as a scholar, but as a soul who has walked through fire and silence to find God, this law is not forgotten in heaven. It lives still. And now, in this age of awakening, it rises again like the dawn. Let us journey together, my friend, not into speculation, but into remembrance. Let the veil of centuries fall, not by rebellion against religion, but by reuniting with the spirit behind it. You are not seeking something new, you are remembering something eternal. A divine law is not born, it is revealed when the soul is ready. And I say to you now, you are ready. For had you not been, these words would not have found you. Shall I take you deeper now into why this radiant law disappeared from the pages of history, and why the world has wandered so far from its light? There was a time when divine law was not only known, but lived not through sermons, not in stone temples, but in the inner sanctuaries of illumined souls. The great ones knew it not as a doctrine, but as vibration. They moved in harmony with this law, as naturally as the moon follows its orbit around the earth. But as the great yugas turned, as consciousness declined from Satya into Kali Yuga, humanity forgot its source and grew blind to its own soul. What was once radiant law became legend, and then myth, and finally heresy. The science of divine return, the sacred geometry of soul union through breath, stillness, and inner communion, was buried beneath rituals, obscured by politics, and sealed off by the rising walls of orthodoxy. Yogananda explained that truths are revealed in clarity during high ages of consciousness. But when spiritual darkness settles over the world, the light of divine perception is eclipsed. The law I speak of, the sacred law of Kriya Yoga, was not created by any religion. It is the eternal pathway planted in the soul by God Himself, a pathway that the ancient rishis walked, that Krishna hinted toward, that Jesus practiced in silence, and that Babaji revived once the world was ready to remember again. But why was it hidden? Because to possess this law is to hold power not over others but over the self. And power over the self is the one thing empires, dogmas, and fears could never control. In the downward cycle of Kali Yuga, mankind lost the ability to comprehend inner truths. As breath became more erratic, as desires grew louder than devotion, the still sanctuary of divine perception was boarded shut by noise, by haste, by intellect unillumined by spirit. Priests began to teach form instead of force, dogma instead of direct communion. And in this blindness, the true spiritual law Kriya, the science of soul evolution, was placed behind veils of secrecy, guarded by the Himalayan masters not out of arrogance, but to preserve its sanctity. Yogananda wrote, "Whenever virtue declines and vice predominates, I incarnate on earth to restore the balance." This is not only the promise of Krishna, it is the inner mission of every spiritual lawgiver who remembers God and vows to awaken others. The West, too, once held the essence of this law. In the desert stillness of Christ's prayer, in the cave-bound revelations of the Essenes, in the whispered words of mystics persecuted by church and state, there flickered the remnants of this sacred science. But those who had the eyes to see were often cast aside, and those who knew the inner meaning dared not speak it aloud. Power clung to ritual. Control feared realization. And so, for 2,0 years, the world wandered. Yet even when it disappeared from temples, it never left the soul. A divine law cannot die. It can only be forgotten. And just as spring follows winter, as consciousness inevitably rises after its lowest point, so too did this law begin to reawaken. In 1861, deep in the Himalayas, Mahavatar Babaji called to Lahiri Mahasaya and placed once again the living current of Kriya into the hands of one ready to share it. Yogananda was later sent by divine command to carry this law across oceans, to remind the world not only of what it had forgotten, but of what it has always been. This is why this law disappeared, not because it was lost, but because we lost the stillness to feel it. And now, through the grace of the Masters, it is returning not as a secret, but as a sacred trust. And you, beloved soul, are part of that return. Beloved soul, beyond the noise of restless thought and the parade of fleeting emotions, there exists a sacred, ancient, unchanging divine. It is not etched upon stone tablets, nor bound by the institutions of man. This law does not tremble before kings, nor does it change with the winds of religious fashion. It is the law by which the soul returns to God, the very science of divine remembrance. And though it was hidden, forgotten, veiled for centuries beneath dogma and dust, this law has waited patiently, like a silent altar within the temple of your spine, untouched but never absent, as if holding its breath for the day when you would turn inward and remember that you were never truly lost. This, dear one, is the law of Kriya. Not a technique, not a ritual, not a philosophy. It is the spiritual architecture of the soul's homeward path. Kriya Yoga is not merely an exercise of breath, but the awakening of the divine altar that lies hidden within you. Just as the stars do not require our recognition to shine, the spinal pathway of light from the base of the spine to the thousand-petaled lotus at the crown has always existed as the inner axis of sacred return. And it is here, in this ascending river of life force, that the forgotten law of God communion abides. Kriya, as I have revealed it, is the science of breath mastery and spiritual stillness, a sacred method taught to me by my line of gurus Lahiri Mahasaya, who received it directly from the deathless Babaji, who gave it anew for this age, knowing that the souls of men had wandered too far into restlessness and needed a bridge to carry them back to their native land of peace. Kriya is not Hindu, it is not Eastern, it is not even mine, it is eternal. It is the divine law that governs how spirit flows through matter, how breath tethers consciousness to the body, and how, through devotion and divine technique, that breath can be withdrawn, the senses calmed, the mind silenced, and the soul released to soar. What you call breath, I call the rope of karma. Each inhalation draws the mind outward, attaching it to the senses, binding it to the play of Maya. Each restless breath fans the flames of desire, and every desire sows new seeds of reincarnation. But what if you could reverse that current? What if, instead of moving outward into the world, your life force began to ascend inward, drawing you back through the inner altar of the spine to the throne of God within? This is the law Kriya reveals. And this is why, though it was known in ancient times, It was hidden not because it was unworthy, but because man was not yet ready to carry it without distortion. It is the sacred fire. Mishandled, it blinds. Revered, it liberates. When you practice Kriya, you do not simply sit and breathe, you enter the temple of the living God within your very being. With every measured movement of life force, you silently bow at the altar of the inner Christ. You disengage the pranic currents from the sense-bound body and lift them, like a priest offering the sacred flame, to the spiritual eye, the single eye Jesus spoke of when he said, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." That light, beloved, is not symbolic. It is real. I have seen it, felt it, bathed in it. It is the law of divine remembrance set into motion. You are not praying for something to happen. You are reactivating what has always been. And so I say again, Kriya is not a belief, it is a law. Just as gravity binds the planets in their course, this spiritual law draws the soul back through the luminous spinal highway, erasing karma, silencing restlessness, and ushering you into the stillness where God lives. Once the breath is calmed, the heart slows. When the breath and heart are stilled, the mind becomes a mirror. When the mind is clear, the soul begins to shine through. And when the soul touches spirit, even for a moment, a million years of forgetfulness dissolve like mist before the rising sun. This law, long buried, has now been given again not to a chosen few, but to every child of God who thirsts for truth. It does not demand your allegiance, it invites your remembrance. The inner altar is lit, the gate stands open, and through the sacred science of Kriya, the long-lost law of the soul's return begins to breathe again in you. Shall we now go deeper into how this law dissolves karma, instills the storm of the world within you? Shall I speak of what it does not in theory, but in the temple of your living breath? Let us walk onward, into the chamber of divine stillness where the soul, long exiled, begins to come home. There is a sacred law buried not in stone nor scripture, but etched into the very breath of your being. It does not command with thunderous decree, nor does it threaten with wrath. It simply waits, silent and changeless, ready to return you to God the moment you remember how to cooperate with it. This law is the science of Kriya Yoga, not a technique, not a ritual, but a direct divine mechanism through which the restless breath and vagrant life force are drawn back into their source, just as rivers, having wandered, return to the sea. What this law accomplishes is not metaphysical theory, but a direct intervention upon the architecture of human bondage. It dissolves karma. Not metaphorically, but vibrationally. By stilling the breath, the storm of restlessness is calmed. By rerouting prana through the deep spine, the soul's invisible shackles begin to loosen. Yogananda teaches that Kriya Yoga is the airplane route to God, because it bypasses the long terrain of dogma and discipline, flying straight to the divine engine of transformation hidden in the body's energy centers. When the law is activated through devotion, right posture, and conscious breath, something almost unthinkable begins to occur. Restlessness, that endless tide of desires, comparisons, fears, hungers, and obsessions, which has held the human mind hostage for countless incarnations, begins to recede. A divine stillness replaces it. Not the stillness of death or numbness, but the stillness of eternal life. A vibrant, awake, intelligent silence where the soul feels no need to chase, prove, or react. The breath becomes gentle, the heartbeat slows, and the brain, long cluttered with chaos, becomes a sanctuary of light. In this stillness, you are not merely calm, you are remembered. You are known again as spirit. And so this law accomplishes something greater still. It lifts man from the domain of ego into the sunlight of soul, awareness. You are no longer the one doing the breathing, the one thinking, reacting, remembering. You become the witness. You become the presence behind the pulse, the eye behind the seeing, the light behind the image. Ego, like a shadow mistaken for substance, begins to fade in the presence of true self-recognition. Yogananda often described this sacred reversal as the soul turning its gaze inward, away from the senses, toward the divine. It is not death, but resurrection. It is not transcendence as escape, it is transcendence as reunion. For this law, once obeyed, does not demand from you effort, it allows you to become effortlessness itself. And just as light, though composed of countless frequencies, bends itself to divine law informing the rainbow, so too does your soul, with all its complexities and karmic vibrations, begin to reflect God's image in perfect, radiant symmetry. The moment you begin to live in obedience to this spiritual law, not by will, but by inner alignment, you no longer ask for peace, you radiate it. You no longer chase love, you become it. And you no longer fear death, because you have already returned to the deathless origin of your own being. For centuries, the great spiritual law, the divine science by which the soul returns to its creator, was hidden from the eyes of the world. Not lost, not destroyed, but guarded. Guarded by luminous beings who did not seek acclaim, but who moved through the centuries as silent stars guiding humanity through its dark night of materialism and forgetfulness. These were not mythic figures, but realized saints, keepers of a sacred trust. Among them was Mahavatar Babaji, that deathless yogi of the Himalayas whose body defies the law of decay, whose consciousness breathes in the silence behind all life. It was Babaji who, in the year 1861, beheld with sorrow the suffering of souls trapped in restlessness and ego dream, and made a divine decision that would alter the trajectory of the age. He called Lahiri Mahasaya to him, an ordinary man outwardly, but inwardly a liberated master, and re-gifted him with the sacred technique of Kriya Yoga, not as a new invention, but as a resumption of an ancient lineage that had lain dormant during the descending yugas of forgetfulness. Babaji knew humanity was not yet ready for mass awakening. He instructed Lahiri Mahasaya to teach only those who were inwardly prepared, those who had ripened through devotion and inner longing. Thus began the covenant, not one signed with ink, but sealed in divine vibration, that this spiritual law would be kept veiled from the masses until humanity had again climbed high enough in consciousness to understand it, respect it, and not distort it for egoic gain. Lahiri Mahasaya did not advertise. He did not preach. He waited silently, drawing the receptive and the sincere by the magnetism of his realization. Among his foremost disciples was Sri Yukteswar, the sage mathematician who united East and West in his vision of cyclical time and divine law. And it was he who, fulfilling Babaji's instructions, prepared the one soul destined to unveil the secret more fully, Paramahansa Yogananda. The law was not forgotten because of cruelty. It was hidden in compassion. Like a mother keeping fire from the hands of a child, the masters of the ages understood the power of Kriya, how it could lift a soul to cosmic heights, or be misused if handed too soon. And so they waited, loved, and protected it until a day would come, long foreseen, when souls all over the world would awaken with a hunger not for creed, but for direct contact with God. That day is now. What you have searched for in lifetimes past, what your soul has cried for in secret, someone preserved in love, in silence, in radiant protection, and now it finds you. Not because you are lucky, but because you are ready. The law was not lost. It was preparing for your arrival. Religion, in its outer shell, has always feared the inward revolution that threatens to dissolve its control. This divine law, this sacred science of Kriya Yoga is not a doctrine, not a ritual, not a creed. It is a living highway that leads man inward, away from the intermediaries of priestcraft, and into the sanctuary of his own spine, his own breath, his own God-given altar of silence. Why does religion fear this law? Because it returns power to where it was always meant to be, not in temples of stone, but in the cathedral of the soul. When man communes with spirit directly, when he learns to still the breath and dissolve the mental waves, the need for external ritual collapses. The dogma becomes dust. The pageantry fades. No longer bound by the chain of belief, man steps into the blazing certainty of experience. Kriya does not ask for your faith in a system, it gives you the system to discover the faith that lives beyond belief. It is not that religion is evil, it is that religion, when misused, becomes afraid of irrelevance. When the inner kingdom is reawakened, the outer scaffolding must fall away. The law of Kriya, revealed again through the great line of masters from Babaji to Lahiri Mahasaya to Sri Yukteswar and finally to me, breaks that chain gently but irrevocably. This is why I faced resistance when I came to the West. This is why I was called a heretic in religious circles. Because I did not bring a new dogma, I brought an ancient key. And keys, my child, unlock doors that some institutions wish would stay sealed forever. They said, "Stay in your country, we do not need another religion." But I had not come to give them another religion. I had come to show them the law behind all religions. I stood in pulpits and parlors, in lecture halls and courtrooms, not to argue, but to declare, that which you are seeking in ritual, in symbol, in the voice of another, can be found in your own stillness. And that law hidden for 20 years, yet blazing like a sun behind clouds was Kriya Yoga, the divine science of breath, stillness, and God union. It is feared not because it is false, but because it is too true. It is not resisted because it is weak, but because it is too powerful for those who have grown comfortable with spiritual dependency. The narrow path Christ spoke of was not a narrow belief, it was a narrow current in the spine, through which the soul climbs to its source. Kriya Yoga is that path, and the law behind it is as precise as gravity, as universal as light. Religion feared this law because it makes every man a prophet, every woman a seer, every heart a throne of the infinite. And once you touch it, you will never again look to the outer world for your salvation. You will know the truth. And the truth, dear one, will not only set you free, will dissolve the very idea that you were ever bound. What you call breath, I call the divine tether between soul and body. It is the invisible leash that ties the infinite to the finite, the spirit to the flesh. You believe you breathe to survive, but I tell you, breath is the rhythm of karma, the vehicle of memory, the silent recorder of your past actions. As long as you breathe unconsciously, you are bound. But once you learn to govern breath, you begin to govern destiny. In the sacred science of Kriya Yoga, the breath is no longer the master, it becomes the obedient servant of soul awakening. What is karma but energy in motion, vibrating through your subtle spine, recorded in the memory banks of prana? These impressions travel up and down the astral spine like magnetic grooves carved into a celestial wire. Each thought, each action, each craving leaves a ripple that echoes through your breath. As long as your breath rises and falls with emotion, restlessness, desire, and fear, so too does the karma that animates your delusion. But the science of Kriya is, I said science, for it is no mere ritual or belief, as the mathematics of the infinite. It is not a guess. It is not even a faith. It is a divine equation, revealed to the masters who saw not through logic but through soul sight. As you direct the life energy up and down the spine with calm will and sacred breath, you begin to erase those impressions. You neutralize the karmic seeds stored in the astral cerebrospinal centers. The yogi saw that breath and mind are like twin horses pulling the chariot of the soul. Calm one, and the other becomes still. Still both, and you step off the wheel of motion into the silence of God. The law I speak of is hidden like gravity. Can you see gravity? Can you grasp it in your hands? And yet every leaf falls because of it. So too, every soul is drawn inward by the divine gravity of God, but only when the law is consciously activated. When your breath is stilled, your prana reversed, and your spine sanctified as the altar of communion, then this unseen law begins to pull you homeward. The sacred current reverses. You are no longer pushed outward by desire, but drawn inward by love. Kriya is not superstition, it is cooperation with the eternal laws of the soul's return. It severs the binding cord of breath. It unknots the rope of karma. It reveals the kingdom within, not by promise but by spiritual physics. And that, my beloved, is why this law is not hidden from you any longer. It is operating within you even now. But when awakened, it does not merely operate, it liberates. The wise men of old, those rishis and prophets who lived in deep communion with the infinite, never wrote scriptures for intellectual debate but as maps to the soul's awakening. Yet, over time, the true coordinates to divine realization have been blurred by theological fog and institutional translation. And so I ask you, beloved soul, has the Bible truly been lost to you? Or has the truth it carried simply been hidden, locked not in secrecy, but in symbols, awaiting your own awakening eye to decode it? When Jesus said, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light," he did not speak in riddles but revealed in plain words the science of divine perception. The single eye is not of the flesh, but of spirit. It is the spiritual eye, the kutastha center between the eyebrows, through which the devotee enters into divine light, into the starry tunnel that leads to God. That Christ utterance is not metaphorical mysticism, it is yogic anatomy. I too have knelt before Christ in the inner temple and heard his voice as a presence within stillness. What he whispered was not dogma, but silence, silence so full, so luminous, that it drew me inward beyond all churches, all creeds, into the cathedral of the soul. Jesus taught not religion but realization. The kingdom of God is within you, not in synagogues or rituals, but in deep, interior stillness. Be still and know. What is this stillness but the dissolution of breath? What is this knowing but the light of the Christ consciousness, shining within the calm and breathless spine? The lost law of Kriya Yoga is not a novelty, is the original practice behind the teachings of the Christ. This is not a claim made in arrogance, but in divine remembrance. Christ never sought to build a religion. He came to restore man's forgotten unity with God. In the method he used, withdrawal of life current from the senses, control of prana through breath, and lifting of consciousness into the inner light is identical with the science of Kriya. When thou prayest, enter thy closet, not the closet of wood and brick, but the inner chamber of silence. Shut the door of the senses, and there, in secret, commune with the Father. That is yoga. That is the law. Many sincere Christians suffer beneath an inherited guilt, believing themselves to be sinners by nature. But I say, do not accept that burden. Christ did not come to declare you damned, he came to reveal your divine origin. His crucifixion was not to purchase your worth with blood, but to show you how to crucify ego, breath, and restlessness. He said, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. That is not a metaphor, it is a mandate of destiny. He would not command what is impossible. You are not meant to merely worship the Christ, but to awaken the Christ within you. Beloved, this law was not hidden by Christ. It was hidden by men who did not understand him. But the time has come. The Comforter, the inner vibration of the Holy Ghost is stirring again in the hearts of men. And through the practice of Kriya Yoga, that law of the soul, buried for 2,000 years beneath ritual and forgetting, now rises again like a phoenix from the ashes of misinterpretation. The truth has never died. It waits only for you to be still and know. Ah, beloved soul, how many years have you tried to climb the invisible mountain by merely rearranging the stones at your feet? You've whispered affirmations in the dark, lit candles in trembling hope, marched in circles of motivation and discipline, and yet the summit has not drawn nearer. Why? Because no outer ritual, however sincere, can sever the deepest root of bondage, the breath. The soul is not tethered to karma by thought alone. It is anchored in the rhythm of prana, the sacred life current that flows through your spine. Until that current is reversed, no effort, no devotion, no belief will lift you into the light. It is like trying to set sail while leaving the anchor buried in the seabed. The winds of faith may be strong, the sails of practice may be wide, but you remain fixed in place, wondering why the horizon never comes closer. It is not failure, it is misdirection. Affirmations are sacred. They are prayers dressed in syllables. But without stillness, without the inward withdrawal of life force through pranayama or kriya, they remain whispers on the surface of the lake, never reaching the pearl at the bottom. Rituals, too, are not to be condemned. They hold memory, devotion, rhythm. But if they are done while the breath runs wild, if the spine remains untouched by divine current, then they are as incense burnt outside the temple walls. Motivation? It is a spark, but not the sun. It may ignite temporary action, but it cannot dissolve the subconscious burdens of many lives. You must go deeper, beyond effort, into surrender. The soul moves not by striving, but by reuniting with its divine breath. This is why I revealed the law of Kriya Yoga not as a belief, but as a divine shortcut for souls ready to fly. One Kriya, practiced with reverence, has the power to dissolve years of mental turmoil, because it strikes the root, the very breath pattern that keeps the soul chained to body consciousness. Many have come to me, weary of years of effort, and found that in silent Kriya, their burdens began to vanish. A mother wrote me once, saying, all the therapy, the books, the talks known could lift the grief of losing my son. But the first time I practiced Kriya in stillness, I felt him not gone, but bathed in light. I knew he lived, and so did I. Another seeker said, I meditated for years without direction. But when I began Kriya, the light in the spiritual eye came like dawn through closed eyelids. And I wept not from sadness, but from homecoming. The law is not an idea, it is a vibration. And when you harmonize your life force with the divine river flowing through the spine, you do not merely believe in freedom, you begin to feel it. Your fears fade, not because you conquer them, but because they can no longer breathe in the rarefied air of your soul's altitude. Your habits weaken, not by war, but because the light has grown too strong for shadows to remain. So now I say unto you, stop polishing the boat, pull up the anchor, direct the breath inward. Let the divine tide of the hidden law carry you home. You do not need to be a saint to approach the altar of the infinite. You do not need robes, rituals, or a lineage of outward purity. You only need sincerity, a heart that longs for God more than for breath, and the courage to turn within. The soul, weary from the deserts of doubt and centuries of forgetting, need only whisper a single word of devotion, and the whole universe begins to bend in your direction. For the divine law we speak of the sacred Kriya Yoga, the eternal bridge between breath and spiritus, not a possession of the few, but a gift given for the upliftment of all. It is not a ladder only for those born holy, but a path made holy by those who walk it in truth. The masters never reserved it for the elite, they reserved it for the ready. Mahavatar Babaji, the deathless master who lives beyond the bounds of time in the Himalayan stillness, once declared with divine simplicity, the divine union through Kriya Yoga will spread to all lands, and those who practice it with sincerity and faith shall be guided by me, whether I appear to them visibly or invisibly. This is not fantasy, it is cosmic promise. And like all true promises given from the divine realm, it cannot be broken. For what God has sealed in spirit, no man can unseal by opinion or doubt. If your heart has ever cried in silence, I want God, then Babaji has already heard you. If you have ever felt a strange pull to go within, to breathe differently, to listen not with the ears but with the soul's stillness, then the law is already working on you. You have been found. This law is not made of doctrine. It is not sealed in dogma. It is composed of love, precision, and grace. Love for it was given out of compassion by the masters who suffered for the sleeping masses. Precision for it operates not by superstition, but by the exact mathematics of prana, karma, and consciousness. And grace for no soul can awaken through will alone. God meets you in each breath, in each still moment, in each cry for truth. That is the mystery of this sacred law. It answers longing more than learning. It moves faster toward humility than toward pride. You do not need to understand all the mechanics before you begin. You do not need to feel worthy. You only need to begin. For this law has not remained hidden. It has not eluded you. It has been calling you in dreams, in whispers, in the tears that fall when you see a saint's picture, in the restlessness that no worldly thing can ease. It is not you who found this truth. This truth has found you. And now that it has, there is no going back to forgetfulness. You may walk away for a time, but the light will return. The breath will tug. The memory will awaken. The masters do not forget those who once turned their face toward God. They remember, and they wait. So now the invitation is spoken not from the tongue of a man, but from the heart of eternity. Come, O soul, come into the sacred silence. Come to the breathless communion. Come to the divine stillness where all your questions melt in God's embrace. You are not alone. You are not lost. You are not unworthy. You are the one this law was given to reach. Welcome home. Before you were born into this world, your soul made a sacred agreement. You chose your parents, your siblings, even your most difficult family members, not by accident, not as punishment, but as part of a divine curriculum designed specifically for your spiritual evolution. Today, I'm going to reveal why every challenging relationship in your family is actually a gift your soul gave itself. What I'm about to share will completely transform how you see every family conflict, every inherited pattern, every wound that still aches in your heart. Because once you understand the eternal agreements your soul made before birth, everything changes. The family member who drives you to frustration becomes your greatest teacher. The parent who seemed absent becomes the perfect catalyst for your independence. The sibling who competed with you becomes your training partner in developing unconditional love. In the next 45 minutes, you're going to discover the ancient wisdom that transforms every painful family experience into profound spiritual understanding. You'll learn why your soul chose the exact family circumstances you were born into, how to recognize the specific spiritual lessons hidden in your family dynamics, and most importantly, how to fulfill the sacred contracts you made before birth. You'll understand why certain family members trigger such intense reactions in you, how to break free from inherited patterns that no longer serve you, and the revolutionary truth about forgiveness that goes far beyond just letting go. This isn't therapy or psychology. This is soul science, the eternal laws that govern how consciousness evolves through relationships. By the end of this teaching, you'll never see your family the same way again. Those difficult relationships will reveal themselves as your greatest spiritual teachers, and you'll finally understand your true purpose within your family system. Now, I know this might sound hard to believe, especially if your family has been a source of deep pain. Maybe you grew up with parents who were absent or abusive. Maybe you have siblings who seem to live in a completely different reality from you. Maybe you look around your family dinner table and wonder how you could possibly be related to these people. I understand this confusion because I've counseled thousands of souls who felt like strangers in their own families. They carried guilt, thinking they should be more grateful. They battled resentment, wondering why they couldn't have been born into an easier family. They questioned God's plan, feeling punished rather than blessed by their family circumstances. But here's what I've discovered through decades of inner communion with divine wisdom. There are no accidents in the spiritual realm. Every soul chooses its family with the precision of a master gardener, selecting exactly the right soil for each precious seed. Your family, with all its beauty and brokenness, is the perfect environment for your soul's unique growth. The ancient rishis of India understood this truth deeply. They taught that we live not one life, but many, and that we travel through these lifetimes with groups of souls who take turns playing different roles in each other's spiritual education. Today, your difficult brother might have been your beloved teacher in a past life. Your critical mother might have been your dearest friend who volunteered to play the challenging role this time around. Today, we'll explore 4 profound dimensions of family soul contracts. First, I'll reveal how to recognize the specific spiritual curriculum your soul designed by choosing your particular family. Every family dysfunction, every inherited pattern, every source of pain has a hidden purpose that becomes clear once you understand the language of the soul. Then, we'll discover the sacred roles each family member agreed to play, why some souls volunteer to be the teachers through love, while others offer their service as teachers through challenge. You'll learn to see beyond personality conflicts to the eternal agreements operating beneath the surface. Next, I'll show you how to identify and fulfill your own soul contracts within your family system. Because you're not just a student in this spiritual classroom, you're also a teacher with specific gifts and lessons you came to share. Understanding your role transforms confusion into purpose. Finally, we'll explore the most powerful practice I know for healing family karma, not just for yourself, but for past and future generations. This goes beyond personal healing into what I call ancestral liberation, where one awakened soul can break chains that have bound a family line for centuries. But here's what might surprise you most. Fulfilling these soul contracts doesn't require your family members to change, understand, or even cooperate with you. The transformation happens entirely through shifts in your own consciousness, yet its effects ripple out to heal relationships in ways that seem miraculous. What we'll discover together today will give you a completely new framework for understanding every relationship challenge you've ever faced. You'll see that what looked like family dysfunction was actually divine design, and what felt like punishment was actually the greatest gift your soul could give itself. So prepare to see your family through the eyes of eternity, where every difficult person becomes a beloved teacher, and every painful experience reveals itself as a stepping stone to divine love. Your soul's sacred curriculum. My dear friend, let me begin by sharing a truth that will revolutionize how you understand your entire life story. Before you were born, your soul sat in council with divine wisdom and carefully designed the exact curriculum you would need for your spiritual evolution in this lifetime. This wasn't a random assignment or cosmic punishment. Your soul, in its infinite wisdom, looked at all the lessons it still needed to learn, all the qualities it wanted to develop, all the karma it wished to resolve, and then chose the perfect family environment to make this growth possible. Think of it this way. If you wanted to become a great musician, you wouldn't choose a teacher who only told you how wonderful you were. You'd choose someone who could challenge you, push you beyond your comfort zone, help you develop skills you didn't even know you needed. Your soul approaches spiritual growth with the same wisdom. The parent who was emotionally distant taught you to develop your own inner strength and connection to the divine. The family member who criticized you helped you learn not to depend on others' approval for your sense of worth. The sibling who seemed to get all the attention pushed you to discover your own unique gifts and talents. I remember counseling a devoted seeker who came to me in great pain about her relationship with her mother. This woman had been raised by someone who was never satisfied, never offered encouragement, always found fault. She couldn't understand why God would give her such a harsh parent. Through deep meditation and inner guidance, we discovered that in several past lives, this soul had been overly dependent on others' praise and validation. She had never developed the inner strength that comes from knowing your worth comes from God alone. Her soul chose a mother who would never give her that external validation, forcing her to find the divine source of love within herself. Once she understood this, everything changed. She could finally see her mother not as the enemy of her happiness, but as the soul who had volunteered for the difficult role of teaching her spiritual independence. The criticism that had once wounded her became the very tool that carved away her dependence on others' opinions. This is how your soul's curriculum works. Every challenging family pattern serves a specific spiritual purpose. If you grew up in a family that struggled with money, your soul might have chosen this to learn either non-attachment to material things or perhaps to develop your own abundance consciousness. If your family avoided expressing emotions, you might have come to learn either how to feel deeply or how to find peace beyond emotional drama. The key is understanding that your soul didn't choose these lessons to punish you, but to liberate you. Every difficult family experience is designed to free you from some limitation, some fear, some false belief that was keeping you from your true divine nature. But here's what makes this even more profound. Your soul didn't just randomly pick challenges. It chose the specific types of difficulties that would unlock your greatest spiritual gifts. The family that didn't understand your sensitivity may have been preparing you to become a healer who can feel others' pain. The relatives who rejected your dreams may have been strengthening your faith so you could inspire others who feel unsupported. I've seen this pattern thousands of times. The souls who grew up in families struggling with addiction often become powerful healers who can guide others to sobriety. Those who were raised by anxious parents frequently develop such deep trust in the divine that they become beacons of peace for others. The children of angry families often develop such compassion that they become natural peacemakers. Your soul's curriculum is never arbitrary. If you look honestly at your family challenges, you'll usually find they've developed in you exactly the opposite qualities. The family that couldn't show love taught you to love unconditionally. The relatives who were judgmental helped you become accepting. The parents who were fearful pushed you to develop courage. This doesn't mean you should be grateful for abuse or neglect. These experiences cause real pain that deserves compassion and healing. But it does mean that your soul is wise enough to use even the most difficult circumstances as raw material for your spiritual development. There's another dimension to this that many people miss. Birth order and family roles are also part of your soul's design. If you're the oldest child, your soul chose the lessons of responsibility and leadership. If you're the youngest, you came to learn either how to receive care or how to maintain your individuality despite others' influence. Middle children often chose the challenging curriculum of learning to find their unique place without being first or last. Even the timing of your birth was spiritually significant. Your soul chose to enter your family at exactly the moment when the family dynamics would provide the perfect spiritual laboratory for your growth. The family member who plays the scapegoat role often carries the most advanced soul mission. They volunteered to absorb and transform the family's shadow patterns. The one who seems to cause the most problems is frequently the catalyst who forces the whole family to grow. Understanding your soul's curriculum doesn't mean accepting harmful behavior or staying in toxic situations. Sometimes your greatest spiritual lesson is learning to set healthy boundaries or even to walk away, but it does mean seeing every family experience through the lens of spiritual purpose rather than random suffering. When you recognize that your soul specifically chose your family as the perfect environment for your evolution, everything shifts. You stop being a victim of family dysfunction and start being a conscious participant in your own spiritual education. The family patterns that once seemed like burdens reveal themselves as the exact tools your soul knew it needed to become who you're meant to be. Understanding sacred family roles. Now, my beloved friend, let me reveal to you one of the most profound truths about family relationships. Every person in your family agreed, at the soul level, to play a specific role in everyone else's spiritual education. These roles were chosen with love, though they may not always appear loving from our limited human perspective. Some souls volunteer to be teachers through beauty and encouragement. These are the family members who naturally support, inspire, and nurture. They show us what unconditional love looks like, what healthy relationships feel like, what it means to be truly seen and accepted. Their gift to the family is demonstrating divine love in human form. But other souls make an even greater sacrifice. They volunteer to be teachers through challenge and difficulty. These are the family members who trigger us, frustrate us, and push our buttons. From the personality level, they appear to be causing problems. But from the soul level, they're offering us the gift of spiritual friction that polishes away our rough edges. This is one of the hardest truths for the human heart to accept, but it's essential for true healing. The family member who has caused you the most pain may be the soul who loves you most deeply at the eternal level. They volunteered for the hardest role, to be misunderstood, to be the villain in the family story, to carry the burden of everyone else's projections and blame. I remember a man who came to me filled with rage toward his father, who had been alcoholic and emotionally absent throughout his childhood. Through meditation and inner guidance, we discovered that this father's soul had actually been one of his dearest friends in past lifetimes. In the spiritual realm before birth, this loving soul had said, "I'll play the absent father so you can develop the strong inner connection to the divine that you'll need for your mission in this lifetime." This doesn't excuse harmful behavior or mean we shouldn't protect ourselves and others, but it reveals the deeper spiritual purpose operating beneath surface dysfunction. The absent father's behavior was still wrong and caused real pain. But the soul inhabiting that difficult personality had volunteered for this challenging role out of love, not malice. Sometimes the most spiritually advanced souls in a family choose to play the most difficult roles. The family member who struggles with addiction might be absorbing and attempting to transform generations of family pain through their own suffering. The one who seems mentally ill might be so sensitive to spiritual dimensions that they can't function in ordinary reality. The family scapegoat, the one everyone blames for the family's problems, often carries the family's healing mission. They're usually the most emotionally honest member, the one willing to express what everyone else is feeling but hiding. Their apparent dysfunction is frequently their soul's way of forcing the whole family system to face its shadows and grow. Then there are what I call the bridge souls, family members who seem to naturally connect with everyone, who help heal family divisions, who bring lightness and joy to heavy situations. These souls chose the role of family healers, and they often have an intuitive understanding of everyone else's pain and needs. Some souls choose to incarnate as the family pioneers, the ones who break away from family traditions, who pursue different paths, who seem to reject family values. From the family's perspective, these members appear rebellious or ungrateful, but their sole purpose is often to expand the family's consciousness, to introduce new ideas, to prevent the family line from becoming spiritually stagnant. The family member who achieves great worldly success might have chosen this role to bring resources and opportunities to the family, or to teach lessons about the relative importance of material accomplishment. The one who struggles financially might be teaching the family about values beyond money, or helping develop compassion and generosity. There are also what the ancient teachings call completion souls, family members who seem to be wrapping up old karma rather than creating new lessons. These are often the elderly relatives who may seem difficult or demanding, but who are actually helping the family complete old patterns so the younger generations can start fresh. Understanding these sacred roles completely transforms how we see family conflicts. When your brother competes with you, he might be helping you develop either healthy competition or non-attachment to winning. When your sister seems to get all the family attention, she might be teaching you to find validation from within, or she might be learning her own lessons about performance and approval. The parent who was too protective helped you either learn to accept love or pushed you to develop independence. The one who was too critical either taught you discernment or helped you develop inner confidence that doesn't depend on others' opinions. But here's the most beautiful part of understanding these sacred roles. Once you see them clearly, you can choose to complete the lessons and graduate from old patterns. You don't have to keep playing out the same family dynamics forever. When you understand that your difficult family member was actually trying to teach you something, you can learn that lesson consciously and move into a new level of relationship. Sometimes this means the external relationship improves dramatically. More often, it means your inner experience of the relationship transforms completely, even if the other person's behavior stays the same. You stop taking their difficulties personally because you recognize they're playing out their own soul curriculum, just as you're playing out yours. The greatest gift you can give your family members is to see them as souls rather than just personalities, to recognize the eternal love that chose to incarnate as your most challenging relationships, and to honor the sacred agreements you all made together before birth. Fulfilling your sacred purpose. My dear friend, now we come to perhaps the most important understanding of all. You are not just a student in your family's spiritual classroom. You are also a teacher. Your soul didn't choose your family only to receive lessons. It came with specific gifts to share, specific healing to offer, and a unique purpose to fulfill within your family system. Every soul that incarnates into a family brings something that family line needs. Sometimes it's a new perspective. Sometimes it's a healing energy. Sometimes it's the strength to break old patterns. Your presence in your family is not accidental. You are there because your particular spiritual gifts are exactly what your family system needs to evolve. The key to understanding your sacred purpose is recognizing what comes naturally to you that seems difficult for other family members. Are you the family member who naturally sees both sides of every argument? Your gift might be bringing balance and perspective to family conflicts. Are you the one everyone comes to with their problems? You might be the family healer, the one who helps transform pain into wisdom. Perhaps you're the family member who questions everything, who refuses to accept "that's how we've always done it" as an answer. Your purpose might be to prevent your family line from becoming spiritually stagnant, to introduce new ideas and possibilities that help the whole family grow. I remember a woman who felt like an outsider in her family of practical, down-to-earth people. She was naturally mystical, drawn to meditation and spiritual practices that her family didn't understand. For years, she felt guilty about being so different. Then she realized her purpose. She had come to introduce her family line to spiritual dimensions they had forgotten, to plant seeds of awakening that would bear fruit in future generations. Your family purpose might not always be comfortable or easy to fulfill. Sometimes you're called to be the truth teller in a family that prefers pretense. Sometimes you're meant to be the boundary setter in a family system that operates through guilt and obligation. Sometimes you're the one who must break harmful patterns, even when that makes you unpopular with other family members. One of the most common sacred purposes is what I call the karma breaker role. You incarnated into your family line specifically to end patterns that have been repeating for generations. The family tendency toward addiction, anger, poverty, or emotional coldness stops with you. Your consciousness is strong enough to transform these patterns rather than just passing them on. Being a karma breaker requires tremendous spiritual strength because you're often working against the momentum of generations. Your family members might not understand your choices. They might feel judged by your decision to live differently. But your soul signed up for this challenging role because it knows the liberation you bring will eventually benefit the entire family line. Another common purpose is the bridge builder role. You came to heal divisions that have separated family members, to help forgiveness flow where there has been resentment, to restore love where there has been alienation. Bridge builders often have the ability to see everyone's perspective and help family members understand each other. Some souls incarnate as wisdom keepers. They naturally understand spiritual principles and can offer guidance when family members are struggling. Others come as joy bringers. Their presence lightens heavy family atmospheres and helps everyone remember how to play and laugh. There are also anchor souls, family members who provide stability and grounding for more volatile personalities. They might not seem spiritually dramatic, but their steady presence creates safety for others to express their emotions and work through their issues. The rebel role is another sacred purpose. These family members challenge traditions and assumptions that have become limiting. They force the family to examine beliefs that no longer serve, even though their questioning might initially cause discomfort. Sometimes your purpose is simply to love unconditionally. You came to demonstrate what acceptance looks like, to show that love doesn't have to be earned or deserved. Your family members learn about divine love by receiving yours, even if they can't return it in the same way. Recognizing your purpose within your family doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your own well-being or accept harmful treatment. True spiritual service sometimes requires setting firm boundaries, saying no to unhealthy dynamics, or even stepping away from family situations that have become toxic. The difference between enabling and truly serving your family is crucial to understand. Enabling means protecting people from the natural consequences of their choices, preventing them from learning necessary lessons. True service means loving people enough to allow them to grow, even when that growth involves difficulty. Sometimes your greatest gift to your family is your own healing and awakening. When you transform your own patterns, it creates a field of possibility for others to transform as well. You become living proof that change is possible, that family patterns don't have to be permanent. Your spiritual practice, your emotional healing, your decision to break harmful patterns, all of this serves your family system, even if they don't recognize it or appreciate it. You're upgrading the spiritual DNA of your entire family line. The most profound family service often happens through your own consciousness transformation. As you heal your own wounds, you automatically heal wounds in your family field. As you develop qualities like forgiveness, compassion, and inner peace, these qualities become available to your family members as well. Remember, fulfilling your sacred purpose within your family doesn't require anyone else to change or understand. It simply requires you to embody your highest spiritual potential and trust that this service will bear fruit in its own perfect time. Your family chose you just as much as you chose them. They needed exactly what you came to bring, your particular blend of gifts, challenges, perspectives, and love. Even if they can't see it yet, even if they resist your truth, your presence in their lives is a blessing they requested at the soul level. The practice of ancestral liberation. Now, my beloved friend, we come to the most powerful dimension of family soul contracts, your ability to heal not just your own relationship with your family, but to liberate your entire ancestral line from patterns of suffering that may have persisted for generations. This is perhaps the most sacred work a soul can undertake, to become what I call an ancestral liberator, one whose consciousness becomes so aligned with divine love that it can dissolve karmic patterns that have bound a family line for centuries. You see, families are not just collections of individuals. They are spiritual systems where consciousness flows like a river through generations. Unhealed trauma, unconscious fears, limiting beliefs, and destructive patterns get passed down like an invisible inheritance. But just as negative patterns can flow through family lines, so can healing and liberation. When one family member achieves a profound level of spiritual awakening, that awakening ripples both backward and forward through time. It heals ancestors who have passed on, and it blesses descendants yet to be born. This is why your personal spiritual work is never just personal. It's a gift to your entire lineage. The ancient teachings speak of souls who incarnate specifically to break family karma. These are usually old souls who have developed enough spiritual strength to transform, rather than just inherit family patterns. They come into families not as victims of ancestral karma, but as liberators of it. Perhaps you've always felt like you were different from your family, like you came from somewhere else. Perhaps you felt called to heal and grow in ways that don't make sense to your relatives. This feeling of being the odd one out might actually be your soul recognizing its mission as a family liberator. The practice of ancestral liberation begins with what I call conscious forgiveness, but this goes far deeper than ordinary forgiveness. You're not just forgiving the family members who hurt you. You're forgiving the pain that has flowed through your family line for generations. Let me share with you a profound meditation I received in deep communion with the divine. Sit quietly and imagine yourself surrounded by the souls of all your ancestors. Not just the ones you knew, but all the generations stretching back through time. See them not as they appeared in their earthly personalities, but as the eternal souls they truly are. Now understand that many of these ancestors carried wounds they could not heal in their lifetimes. They passed these wounds to their children not out of malice, but because they didn't know how to transform pain into wisdom. Feel compassion for their struggles, their limitations, their suffering. Next, imagine divine light flowing through your consciousness, the light of perfect love, infinite forgiveness, complete understanding. Allow this light to stream not just through you, but through your entire ancestral line. See this light dissolving old resentments, healing ancient wounds, bringing peace to souls who have been carrying pain for lifetimes. As you do this practice, you might feel emotions that aren't even yours. Grief, anger, fear that belongs to ancestors you never met. Don't resist these feelings. Let them move through you and be transformed by the divine light. You're not just feeling your own emotions, you're helping to heal the emotional wounds of your entire lineage. I once worked with a woman whose family had a pattern of women dying young, leaving behind grieving widowers and orphan children. This pattern had repeated for 5 generations. Through deep spiritual work, she discovered that the original trauma began with a great-great-grandmother who died in childbirth, carrying intense guilt about abandoning her family. This guilt and fear of abandonment had been passed down through the maternal line, actually magnetizing early death for the women in the family. Through ancestral healing work, she was able to communicate with this ancestor's soul, helping her release the guilt and receive divine forgiveness. The moment this ancestral healing was complete, the entire family pattern shifted. The cycle of early death was broken, and the women in subsequent generations began living full, healthy lives. This is the power of ancestral liberation. When you heal at the soul level, you heal across time itself. But ancestral liberation isn't just about healing the past, it's also about blessing the future. When you break limiting patterns in your own life, you prevent these patterns from being passed to your children and their children. Your consciousness work creates a new foundation for future generations to build upon. Every limiting belief you transform, every fear you transcend, every destructive pattern you break stops that limitation from flowing into the future. You become what the ancestors needed, a soul strong enough to transform rather than transmit family karma. The practice of ancestral blessing is also profound. Instead of just trying to escape your family patterns, you actively send love, forgiveness, and healing energy to your family line. You bless your ancestors for their struggles, knowing that their difficulties were part of the soul curriculum that eventually produced you, a soul capable of bringing healing to the whole line. You also bless your descendants, both biological and spiritual, all the souls who will be touched by the healing you accomplish in this lifetime. You're creating a legacy of liberation rather than limitation. Sometimes ancestral liberation happens through direct communication with departed family members in meditation or dreams. More often, it happens through your own consciousness transformation. As you develop qualities your family line has lacked: forgiveness, inner peace, unconditional love, spiritual wisdom. These qualities automatically become part of your family's spiritual DNA. The most profound ancestral liberation often comes through what I call conscious completion, recognizing when a soul contract has been fulfilled and consciously graduating from old family patterns. You acknowledge the lessons your family experiences have taught you, express gratitude for the growth they provided, and then choose to move forward in a new way. This doesn't mean rejecting your family or thinking you're better than them. It means recognizing that you've learned what you came to learn, and now you're free to embody new possibilities for your entire lineage. Remember, my dear friend, your spiritual awakening is never just for you. Every step you take toward divine love, every pattern you heal, every limitation you transcend creates new possibilities for every soul connected to you. You are not just healing yourself, you are healing the world, one family line at a time. My beloved friend, what we've explored today reveals the magnificent truth hidden within your family relationships. You now understand that your family is not a random accident, but a sacred design created by your own soul's wisdom. Every difficult relationship, Every inherited pattern, every source of family pain has been a carefully chosen curriculum for your spiritual evolution. You've learned to recognize the soul contracts operating beneath surface personality conflicts, to see the eternal love hidden within even the most challenging family dynamics, and most importantly, to embrace your own sacred purpose as both student and teacher within your family system. Remember, fulfilling these soul contracts isn't about fixing your family or forcing them to change. It's about awakening to the divine purpose already operating through your relationships and allowing that awakening to naturally transform everything around you. So carry this truth in your heart. Every person in your family, no matter how difficult, no matter how distant, is a soul who loves you enough to play whatever role your growth requires. They may not remember this love consciously, but at the deepest level, they are your spiritual allies, your fellow travelers on the journey back to God. You are not a victim of family dysfunction. You are a sacred agent of family healing. You didn't randomly end up in this family. You chose it with perfect wisdom. And now you have the keys to transform family wounds into family blessings, family karma into family dharma. The very challenges that once seemed like obstacles are actually the doorways to your greatest spiritual gifts. Now, understanding these soul contracts is just the beginning of a much deeper mystery. Because once you begin to see your family relationships through the eyes of eternity, a profound question arises. If you chose your family before birth, what else did you choose? What other sacred agreements did your soul make about this lifetime? In my next teaching, I'm going to reveal something that will revolutionize how you see your entire life purpose. We're going to explore the master contract, the overarching spiritual mission you chose before coming into this body, the specific gifts you agreed to share with the world, and the divine calling that's been whispering to your heart your entire life. This isn't just about understanding your family anymore. This is about discovering why your soul chose to incarnate at this exact moment in history, in this exact body, with these exact circumstances. When you understand your life contract, everything falls into place with stunning clarity. The signs have been there all along, but now you'll finally know how to read them. So click on that video now, because your soul is ready to remember not just why you chose your family, but why you chose this entire magnificent lifetime. I'll be waiting there to guide you deeper into the mystery of your sacred purpose. Until we meet again in the light of eternal truth, may you see your family through the eyes of divine love. Have you ever wondered why this moment found you? Why, out of billions of videos, your soul guided you here today? My dear friend, this is not coincidence. This is the universe's way of saying it's time for you to remember the magnificent truth I'm about to share. You are not struggling by accident. You are being prepared to win in ways your mind cannot yet imagine. And today, everything changes. I know you've been fighting battles that seem impossible to win. Perhaps you've wondered why life feels so hard, why your dreams seem so distant, why others appear to succeed while you struggle. Maybe you've started believing you're cursed, unlucky, or simply not meant for happiness and success. I understand the weight you carry, the questions that keep you awake at night, the fear that maybe this is just how your life is supposed to be. I see the exhaustion in your spirit from trying so hard for so long, with so little to show for it. I feel the ache in your heart when you watch others achieve their dreams, while yours seem to slip further away with each passing year. I know the shame you feel when people ask about your goals, and you have to explain once again why things haven't worked out the way you planned. You've probably wondered if there's something fundamentally wrong with you, some cosmic deficiency that makes you unworthy of the success and happiness that others seem to find so easily. Maybe you've questioned whether you're asking for too much, dreaming too big, hoping for things that are simply not meant for people like you. But let me tell you something that will bring immediate relief to your weary heart. You are not a cosmic mistake. You are not being punished. You are not forgotten by the divine intelligence that creates galaxies and grows flowers with equal perfection. Every single challenge you have faced, every disappointment that has broken your heart, every door that has slammed in your face, all of it has been the universe secretly preparing you for your greatest victory. What you call your darkest hours, I call your spiritual boot camp. What you think are signs that you're destined to fail, I know are evidence that you're being prepared for success beyond your wildest imagination. What feels like punishment is actually preparation. What seems like abandonment is actually the most intimate care from a universe that loves you more than you love yourself. Unlike motivational speakers who tell you to just think positive, I will show you the actual spiritual laws that govern success and failure. This wisdom comes from direct communion with the source of all abundance, tested through decades of guiding souls from despair to triumph. You won't just feel inspired, you'll understand the cosmic mechanics of how the universe creates victory in your life. I have walked this path myself, my friend. I have felt the despair of thinking I was abandoned by God. I have experienced losses so complete that I questioned everything I believed about divine love and cosmic justice. But through those dark valleys, I discovered truths that transformed not only my own life, but the lives of thousands of souls who came to me feeling exactly as you feel right now. Today, you will transform from victim to victor, understanding how every challenge has been secretly strengthening you for triumph. You will develop unshakable faith in the universe's plan for your success. You will learn to work with cosmic forces instead of against them. You will recognize the infinite support and resources that have always been available to you. And you will release the limiting beliefs that have kept you playing small when you were born to shine bright. You will leave behind the pain of feeling like life is against you or that you're cursed with bad luck. No longer will you believe you're not worthy of success, love, or happiness. You will stop struggling alone without understanding the divine support that surrounds you always. You will break free from the Paramahansa patterns of self-sabotage and limitation that have held you back. And you will never again live in fear that your dreams are impossible or unrealistic. Let me share with you a story that changed everything I understood about how the universe works. Many years ago, when I was still a young seeker, I experienced what felt like the complete destruction of everything I had worked for. I had founded a small ashram in India, pouring my heart and soul into creating a place where sincere souls could find God. For 3 years, I had sacrificed everything: my comfort, my health, my personal relationships to build this sacred space. I remember the excitement I felt when we first opened the ashram doors. Here was my chance to serve God by serving God's children. I envisioned a place where weary souls could find peace, where spiritual seekers could dive deep into meditation and self-realization, where the ancient teachings of yoga and Vedanta could be lived and shared in their purest form. Every morning, I would wake before dawn to meditate in our simple temple room, feeling such gratitude that I could dedicate my life to this sacred work. Every evening, I would walk through our modest gardens, tending the plants with my own hands, seeing in each flower a reflection of divine beauty. Every moment felt infused with purpose and meaning. But then disaster struck from every direction at once. A terrible monsoon flooded the buildings, destroying months of careful preparation. I watched in horror as the meditation hall filled with muddy water, as our precious spiritual books were ruined, as the simple altar I had built with such love was swept away by the torrential floods. But the external destruction was nothing compared to the internal challenges that followed. Several of my most dedicated students left, saying they had lost faith in my ability to lead them to God. One young man who had been like a son to me told me that he couldn't follow someone who clearly didn't have God's protection and blessing. Another woman said that if this ashram was truly meant to be, these disasters wouldn't keep happening. Their words cut deeper than any physical loss because they echoed the doubts that were growing in my own heart. Maybe I was deluding myself about my spiritual calling. Maybe I was just a young man with grandiose ideas and no real connection to the divine. Maybe God was trying to tell me that I was not meant for this work. Worst of all, my own teacher seemed to turn away from me. Sri Yukteswar, whom I revered as the embodiment of divine wisdom, stopped answering my letters. When I would visit him, he would be polite but distant, no longer offering the warm guidance and encouragement that had sustained me through my early spiritual struggles. I felt like an orphan, abandoned by both human and divine love. Night after night, I would lie awake questioning everything. Had I misunderstood my calling? Had I been following my ego rather than God's will? Was this destruction a sign that I should return to conventional life and abandon these spiritual aspirations? The doubt was like a poison spreading through my consciousness, destroying my peace and my sense of purpose. One night, as I sat in the ruins of what had been my meditation hall, I felt more alone and defeated than I had ever felt in my life. The roof was partially collapsed, letting in the rain that continued to fall on the broken remains of my dreams. I cried out to God with all the anguish in my heart, "Why have you abandoned me? Why have you allowed everything I built in your name to crumble? Have I failed you so completely that you must destroy my every effort to serve you?" In that moment of complete surrender, something extraordinary happened. I felt a presence so loving, so vast, so completely accepting that it took my breath away. It was as if the very air around me became alive with divine love. And in that sacred presence, I heard these words that changed my entire understanding of how God works in our lives. My beloved child, I have not been destroying your work. I have been preparing you for work so magnificent that you needed to be strengthened first. Everything you think you have lost was too small for the destiny I have planned for you. In that moment of revelation, I realized that my little ashram, as beautiful as it was, could only serve a few dozen souls in a remote corner of India. But the failure of that ashram was preparing me for something unimaginable, to carry these sacred teachings across the ocean to America, where millions of souls were waiting to hear the eternal truths of yoga and meditation. The flood that destroyed my buildings was washing away my small thinking. The students who left were making space for thousands who would come. My teacher's silence was forcing me to find my own direct connection to the divine source, so that when I taught others, I would be speaking from authentic realization rather than borrowed wisdom. Every challenge I had faced in building and losing that ashram had been developing qualities I would need for my true mission. The physical work of construction had taught me practical skills I would need in establishing centers in America. The disappointment of losing students had strengthened my faith, so it would not depend on others' approval or understanding. The experience of feeling abandoned by my teacher had forced me to develop my own direct communion with divine wisdom. But most importantly, the complete destruction of my small dreams had broken open my heart to receive a vision so much larger than anything I could have imagined for myself. If that first ashram had succeeded according to my limited plans, I might never have been available for the cosmic plan that was actually unfolding for my life. But this painful preparation was nothing compared to what I witnessed in America when I began teaching there. Let me tell you about a man who came to me more broken than I had ever seen a human being, and how the universe used his complete destruction to create a victory more beautiful than any success he had ever dreamed possible. His name was Robert, and when he first attended my lectures in Los Angeles, I could see that he was hanging on to life by the thinnest thread. He would sit in the back row, his shoulders hunched with defeat, his eyes red from sleepless nights and too many tears. After several weeks of attending without speaking to anyone, he finally approached me after a lecture, his hands shaking as he asked if he could speak with me privately. In my office, the story poured out of him like water from a broken dam. He had spent 15 years building what appeared to be a hugely successful importing business, bringing handmade goods from Asia to sell in high-end American stores. He had worked 18-hour days, sacrificed time with his family, invested every penny he could save or borrow into growing this enterprise that he believed would secure his family's future. For a while, it seemed like his sacrifices were paying off. His business was featured in trade magazines as an example of innovative entrepreneurship. His products were in stores across the country. He was making more money than he had ever dreamed possible and was able to provide his wife and 2 young children with every comfort and luxury they desired. But beneath the surface of apparent success, cracks were forming that he was too busy and too proud to notice. His business partner, whom he had trusted like a brother, had been slowly siphoning money from their accounts for over 2 years. His wife, lonely and overwhelmed by raising their children essentially as a single parent, had been begging him to slow down and spend more time at home. His own health was deteriorating from stress and overwork, but he kept pushing himself harder, believing that just a little more success would solve all their problems. The collapse came suddenly and completely. His partner disappeared overnight, taking with him not just the stolen money but also crucial business contacts and trade secrets. Robert discovered that his supposed friend had been bad-mouthing him to suppliers and customers for months, spreading rumors about the quality of his products and his reliability as a business partner. Within weeks, his largest customers canceled their orders. His suppliers, influenced by his former partner's lies, demanded immediate payment for goods already delivered. His bank, seeing the sudden collapse in revenue, called in the loans he had used to finance his expansion. Everything he had built over 15 years crumbled in less than a month. But the business failure was just the beginning of his suffering. His wife, unable to handle the stress and shame of their sudden bankruptcy, and resentful about years of feeling neglected, decided that she couldn't endure any more uncertainty. She took their children and moved back to her parents' house across the country, filing for divorce and demanding child support that he couldn't possibly pay. He had been forced to sell their beautiful home, their cars, even his wife's jewelry to pay off debts. He was living in a single rented room in a part of town he had never imagined he would call home, working at a minimum wage job, loading trucks at a warehouse, barely earning enough to survive while most of his paycheck went to lawyers and creditors. But the worst part was not the external circumstances, It was what these failures had done to his spirit. He told me, "Master, I must be cursed. I must have been a terrible person in a past life because God clearly hates me. I tried to do everything right. I worked harder than anyone I know. I tried to provide for my family and build something meaningful. But everything I touch turns to ash. My wife was right to leave me. I am a failure as a husband, as a father, as a human being." He pulled out a small bottle of pills from his pocket and said, "I have been carrying these sleeping pills for 3 weeks now. Every night I think about taking all of them and ending this nightmare. I cannot bear to be such a burden and failure anymore. The only reason I haven't done it yet is because I keep thinking about my children and wondering if they would be better off with their father dead or just absent from their lives." I looked into his eyes and saw not a failure, but a soul being prepared for greatness beyond his imagination. I could see, with the inner vision that comes from years of meditation and communion with divine intelligence, that every loss he had experienced had been clearing space in his life for something so beautiful that his current mind could not even conceive of it. I said to him, "My dear friend, you are not being punished by the universe, you are being recruited by it. Every loss you have experienced has been clearing space in your life for something so magnificent that you needed to be completely emptied first to make room for it. You think you are at the end of your story, but you are actually at the beginning of the most beautiful chapter of your life." He looked at me like I was completely insane. "Master," he said, "how can you possibly call losing everything a blessing? How can bankruptcy and divorce and complete humiliation be preparation for something good? I have lost my business, my marriage, my home, my savings, my reputation, my children's respect. What could possibly be left to build on?" I smiled and asked him a simple question that changed everything. I said, "Robert, if I told you that 5 years from now you would have work that brings you more joy and fulfillment than you ever thought possible, and a love relationship more beautiful and supportive than your first marriage ever was, and a deeper connection with your children than you had when you were married to their mother, but that you had to lose everything you have now to make space for these blessings, would you choose to go through this painful time?" He was quiet for a long moment, and then he said, "Of course I would choose it if I knew that was what was happening. But how can I know that? How can I trust that when everything in my experience tells me that I am just unlucky, that good things happen to other people but not to me?" I told him, "That is exactly what developing faith means, learning to trust the universe's perfect intelligence, even when you cannot see the destination from where you are standing. Faith is not believing that everything will work out exactly as your mind thinks it should. Faith is trusting that there is a divine intelligence far greater than your personal understanding, and that this intelligence is working in your life especially when you cannot see how." Over the following months, I watched Robert transform from a broken man into a shining example of what is possible when we align with the universe's plan for our lives. The transformation didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't without continued struggles and setbacks. But slowly, as he learned to practice the spiritual principles I taught him, his entire relationship with life began to change. He started attending my meditation classes regularly, not because he was particularly interested in spirituality, but because he was desperate for any peace from the torment in his mind. Those first weeks, he could barely sit still for 5 minutes. His thoughts raced constantly between regret about the past and anxiety about the future. But gradually, in those quiet moments of meditation, something began to awaken in him. He started noticing that he felt most peaceful, not when he was trying to force solutions to his problems, but when he was simply sitting in stillness, trusting that the same intelligence that beat his heart and grew the trees could also handle the details of his life. This was his first taste of what I call divine surrender, not giving up on your dreams, but giving up your need to control exactly how and when they manifest. As Robert learned to surrender his timeline and his methods while holding on to his vision of a meaningful life, the most amazing synchronicities began to appear. One day, while shopping for groceries with his meager budget, he struck up a conversation with a woman in line ahead of him who was buying an unusual variety of vegetables he had never seen before. She explained that she was starting a small business helping local farmers sell their organic produce directly to consumers through a weekly delivery service, bypassing the expensive grocery stores and providing fresh, healthy food at affordable prices. She mentioned that she had a background in farming and nutrition, but she needed someone with business experience to help her grow the operation and handle the logistics. At first, Robert dismissed this conversation as too small, too simple, not what a successful businessman should be considering. After all, he had been importing goods worth millions of dollars. How could he go from that to delivering vegetables? But as he meditated on the encounter that evening, he felt something he hadn't experienced in months, a sense of rightness, of alignment, that he had never felt with any of his previous business ventures. This work would allow him to help hardworking farming families earn a fair living while providing fresh, healthy food to his community. It felt like service, not just profit. It connected him to the earth, to real people, to work that mattered beyond making money. So he decided to trust this gentle guidance and reached out to the woman, whose name was Sarah, to explore working together. Their first meeting lasted 4 hours as they discovered an amazing compatibility in their visions for sustainable agriculture and community service. Sarah had the passion and knowledge about farming and nutrition, but she had been struggling with the business and marketing aspects of her vision. Robert had exactly the skills she needed, and her work gave him a sense of purpose he had never found in pure profit-seeking. They decided to start small, working with just 5 local farms to deliver fresh produce to 50 families in their area. Robert used the business skills he had developed over 15 years, but now in service of something that fed his soul as well as his bank account. He designed systems for taking orders, coordinating with farmers, planning delivery routes, and building customer relationships. But the most surprising thing was how much joy he found in the simple aspects of the work. Loading boxes of fresh vegetables into his delivery truck felt completely different from the stress and pressure of his former business. Talking with customers about the farms where their food was grown connected him to his community in ways his previous success never had. Working with his hands, seeing the direct results of his efforts in the satisfied smiles of customers and the fair checks he could deliver to farmers, gave him a sense of accomplishment that had been missing from his corporate achievements. Within 6 months, their little operation had grown to serve 200 families with produce from 15 local farms. Robert discovered that he had a gift for creating systems that served everyone involved, not just the owners. His previous business experience, combined with this new consciousness of service rather than pure profit, made him exactly the person this work needed. But the beautiful surprises didn't stop there. As Robert and Sarah worked together day after day, they developed first a deep friendship, then a romantic partnership. Sarah loved him not for what he owned or achieved, but for who he had become through his journey of loss and surrender. She had seen him at his lowest point and watched him rebuild himself on entirely new principles. Their relationship was built on shared values, genuine compatibility, and mutual respect rather than convenience or desperation. Unlike his first marriage, which had been based largely on his ability to provide financial security and status, his relationship with Sarah was grounded in their shared vision of meaningful work and service to their community. They could talk for hours about their dreams for expanding sustainable agriculture, their hopes for raising consciousness about healthy eating, their plans for creating more jobs for rural families. 2 years after they met in that grocery store line, Robert and Sarah were married in a simple ceremony in one of the farms they worked with, surrounded by the farming families who had become like extended family to them. Their business had grown into the largest sustainable agriculture cooperative in their state, providing good incomes for hundreds of farming families and bringing fresh food to thousands of consumers. But even more beautiful than their business success was the transformation in Robert's relationship with his children. When he had been focused purely on financial achievement, he had been physically present but emotionally absent, too stressed and preoccupied to really connect with his son and daughter. His divorce had initially made this even worse, as he was consumed with guilt and shame about the failure of his marriage. But as he learned to find fulfillment in work that aligned with his values, as he developed a loving partnership with Sarah, as he discovered peace through meditation and spiritual practice, he became the father his children had always needed. His visits with them were no longer tense and awkward, filled with his anxiety about proving he was still a good provider. Instead, they became opportunities for real connection, play, and shared exploration of life. His children began to see a completely different man, one who was present, happy, and genuinely interested in their lives rather than distracted by business worries. They started asking to spend more time with him, and eventually his ex-wife agreed to shared custody because she could see how much their father had grown and changed. 5 years after that night when he wanted to end his life, Robert came to see me with tears of gratitude streaming down his face. He brought Sarah with him, and they told me they were expecting their first child together. He said, "Master, I cannot believe that I wanted to kill myself just before the most beautiful chapter of my life was about to begin. If I had succeeded in ending my life, I would have missed everything that makes life worth living: meaningful work, true love, genuine connection with my children, and the peace that comes from knowing I am living according to my deepest values. He continued, "The business I lost was built on fear of not having enough, fear of not being successful enough, fear of what others would think of me. But the work I do now is built on love, love for the earth, love for the farming families we serve, love for the customers who trust us to provide their food, love for the vision of a more sustainable and just way of living. I make less money than I did before, but I am infinitely wealthier in every way that matters." Sarah added, "What Robert went through before we met made him exactly the partner I needed. If he had never lost his first business, he would never have learned to value something beyond pure profit. If his first marriage hadn't ended, he wouldn't have been available for a relationship based on shared purpose rather than just convenience. If he hadn't experienced complete failure, he wouldn't have developed the humility and compassion that make him such a wonderful father and partner." "How did you know?" Robert asked me. "How did you see what was coming when I could only see failure and hopelessness? How did you know that losing everything was actually the beginning of gaining everything that really matters?" I told him what I am telling you now. I could see his potential victory because I understand the 3 sacred laws that govern how the universe creates success in our lives. This man's story reveals these cosmic principles that operate in every human life, including yours. But first, let me share one more story that will open your heart to understand how love itself sometimes appears in the disguise of challenge and difficulty. This is a very personal story about my own beloved mother and how her seeming rejection became the greatest gift of my spiritual life. When I was a young man, still living in my family home in Bengal, I began to feel an irresistible calling to dedicate my life completely to finding God. This wasn't a casual interest in spirituality or a phase of youthful idealism. It was a burning, consuming desire that made everything else in life seem pale and meaningless by comparison. I would spend hours each day in meditation, often forgetting to eat or sleep, completely absorbed in the quest for divine realization. I wanted to renounce the world and spend all my time in meditation and spiritual practice. I dreamed of living in a cave in the Himalayas, or in a simple ashram where I could devote every moment to communion with the divine. The idea of pursuing a conventional career, getting married, and living an ordinary householder's life felt like spiritual death to me, but my mother had completely different plans for my life. She was a practical woman who loved me deeply, but could not understand what seemed to her like impractical fantasies. She wanted me to get married to a nice girl from a good family, have children who would carry on our lineage, pursue a respectable career that would bring stability and honor to our family name. Night after night, we would have painful arguments about my spiritual longings. She would say, "You are being selfish and impractical. Your duty is to your family, not to these mystical dreams. You have responsibilities to fulfill before you can think about spiritual pursuits. You need to grow up and accept your obligations like a normal person." Her words felt like daggers to my heart because I loved her so much and desperately wanted her approval and understanding. But I could not deny the divine calling that burned in my soul like an unquenchable fire. I tried to explain to her that this was not a choice I was making, but a calling I was receiving. I told her that I felt God pulling me toward a life of complete dedication, and that ignoring this call would be like trying to stop the sun from rising. But the more passionately I spoke about my spiritual aspirations, the more worried and angry my mother became. She began to see my devotion as a kind of madness that was threatening to destroy her son's future. She consulted with relatives, with family friends, with anyone who might help her talk sense into me. The conflict became so intense that it was tearing our family apart. My father, caught between his wife's practical concerns and his son's spiritual passion, didn't know how to help either of us. My mother's love for me was so great that she couldn't bear to see me, as she put it, throwing my life away on impossible dreams. Finally, after months of escalating arguments and painful tension, my mother gave me an ultimatum. She said, "If you insist on this spiritual foolishness, you are no longer welcome in this house. I cannot watch you destroy your life and break my heart. Choose now your family and your responsibilities, or your mystical fantasies." I was devastated. How could I choose between the love of my mother and the love of God? How could I abandon the woman who had given me life and raised me with such devotion? But how could I also abandon the divine calling that was the very center of my being? It felt like being asked to cut out my own heart and choose which half to keep. For days I agonized over this impossible choice. I meditated for hours, praying for guidance, begging God to show me a way to honor both my mother's love and my spiritual calling. But the guidance that came was clear and unwavering. I must follow my soul's path, even if it meant losing everything familiar and comfortable in my life. With tears streaming down my face, I packed my few belongings and prepared to leave my childhood home. My mother's face as I said goodbye was etched with pain and disappointment. She said, "You are making the biggest mistake of your life. When you come to your senses and realize what you have thrown away, don't expect me to welcome you back with open arms." As I walked away from the house where I had been born and raised, carrying everything I owned in a small bundle, I felt like an orphan, cut off from the warmth and security of family love. I had no money, no plan, no idea where I would sleep that night or how I would survive. All I had was an unshakable faith that God would provide for those who seek Him with their whole heart. For months, the pain of this separation was almost unbearable. I lived in temples, in ashrams, sometimes sleeping under trees or in railway stations. I survived on whatever food kind souls would offer, sometimes going days without a proper meal. But the physical hardships were nothing compared to the emotional agony of feeling rejected by the person I loved most in the world. Many times I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake, if my spiritual seeking was just selfishness disguised as devotion. Maybe my mother was right. Maybe I should have chosen practical responsibility over mystical longings. Maybe I was just a foolish young man who thought he was more special than he really was. But gradually, as my spiritual practice deepened and my understanding grew, I began to see the divine intelligence behind what had felt like the cruelest rejection. My mother's harsh words and ultimate rejection had cut the last cord that bound me to conventional life. If she had supported my spiritual calling, I might have tried to live a divided life, keeping one foot in the material world and one foot in the spiritual dimension. But her complete rejection forced me to put my whole heart into the spiritual path. More importantly, the pain of losing my mother's love drove me to seek the unconditional love of the Divine Mother that dwells within all beings. In my desperation to fill the void left by human rejection, I discovered a love so vast and perfect that it healed not only my own heart but enabled me to become a channel of that healing love for thousands of other seeking souls. The years of living without family support taught me to rely completely on divine providence, to trust that the universe would provide everything I needed for my spiritual journey. This complete dependence on God's grace developed a faith so unshakable that no external circumstances could disturb my inner peace. The pain of separation from my mother also gave me deep compassion for all souls who feel unloved, rejected, or abandoned. When students would come to me with broken hearts, feeling that no one understood or cared about them, I could speak to their pain from my own experience. My suffering became the foundation for my ability to heal others' suffering. Years later, when I had established myself as a spiritual teacher and my work was bringing peace and transformation to many lives, my mother came to see me. I was teaching at a large gathering in Calcutta when I saw her sitting in the audience, tears streaming down her face. After my talk, she approached me with trembling hands. With tears in her eyes, she said, "My son, I understand now what I could not understand then. I thought I was protecting you from a life of poverty and uncertainty, but God was calling you to wealth and security beyond anything I could have imagined for you. I had to be harsh so that you would be strong enough to follow your true calling. Please forgive a foolish mother who nearly prevented her son from fulfilling his divine destiny." In that moment, I realized that my mother had been unconsciously serving as an instrument of divine love all along. Her rejection had been love in disguise, protecting me from a compromised life and pushing me toward my highest destiny. The universe had used her resistance to give me the strength and determination I needed to fulfill my soul's purpose. I fell at her feet and thanked her for the greatest gift she could have given me, the gift of having no choice but to follow God completely. Without her rejection, I might have become a part-time seeker, a spiritual hobbyist who talked about God but never developed the total commitment necessary for true realization. Now that your heart is open to these truths, let me reveal the cosmic secret that explains everything you have experienced and everything that is about to unfold in your life. There are 3 sacred laws that govern how the universe creates victory and success in human life. And once you understand these laws, you will never again see your challenges as punishment or evidence that you are unlucky or unwanted. The first law I call the law of divine preparation. This law states that the universe must prepare you before it can bless you with the success your soul came here to experience. Just as a muscle must be broken down through exercise before it can become stronger, Your character and consciousness must be developed through challenges before you can handle the blessings that are your divine birthright. Think about it this way. If the universe gave you everything you wanted immediately, without any preparation or growth, what would happen? You would either be destroyed by getting things you weren't ready for, or you would become spoiled and ungrateful, taking your blessings for granted. The universe loves you too much to let either of those things happen. Every challenge you have faced has been building specific spiritual muscles that you will need for your ultimate success. Have you struggled with rejection? You were building resilience and inner worth that don't depend on others' approval. Have you faced financial difficulties? You were learning to trust in the infinite abundance that surrounds you and developing creative resourcefulness. Have you dealt with health problems? You were discovering the unshakable peace and strength that come from knowing your true identity as an immortal spiritual being. Have you experienced the pain of betrayal by people you trusted? You were learning to distinguish between those who are aligned with your highest good and those who are not. You were developing the wisdom to set healthy boundaries and the strength to stand alone when necessary. Most importantly, you were learning to trust your own inner guidance rather than depending on others to validate your worth and decisions. Have you struggled with feeling different, misunderstood, or out of place in conventional society? You were being prepared to serve as a bridge between ordinary consciousness and higher possibilities. Your sensitivity and depth were being preserved so you could help others who feel the same way. Your inability to find satisfaction in shallow pursuits was protecting your capacity for profound joy and meaning. Look at any person whose success truly inspires you, and you will find that they went through significant challenges that developed exactly the qualities they needed to achieve and maintain their success. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no good ideas. He went bankrupt several times before creating the Disney empire. His early failures taught him persistence, creativity, and the importance of believing in visions that others couldn't see. Oprah Winfrey was born into poverty, experienced abuse and trauma in her childhood, and faced discrimination and setbacks throughout her early career. But these experiences gave her the empathy, authenticity, and resilience that became the foundation of her extraordinary success in connecting with people's hearts and inspiring their highest potential. J.K. Rowling was a single mother living on welfare when she wrote the first Harry Potter book. Publishers rejected her manuscript 12 times. But her experience of struggle and near despair gave her the depth and authenticity that made her stories resonate with millions of readers around the world. The universe wasn't punishing these souls, it was preparing them. And it has been preparing you too. Every disappointment that felt like the end of your dreams was actually clearing space for dreams even more beautiful. Every failure that seemed to prove you weren't meant for success was actually building the character and wisdom that will make your ultimate success more meaningful and sustainable. But understanding preparation is beautiful, but how do you recognize when the universe is saying yes to your dreams? This brings us to the second sacred law, the law of cosmic support. This law reveals that the universe is constantly sending you help, guidance, and opportunities, but they often come disguised as ordinary circumstances or even difficulties. The universe's support rarely looks like what we expect it to look like. We want clear signs, obvious opportunities, easy paths to our goals. We want success to come with fanfare and recognition, with immediate results and clear validation. But cosmic support is much more intelligent and loving than that. It knows that if everything came too easily, we wouldn't develop the strength, wisdom, and character that make success truly fulfilling. Cosmic support appears as the person who says no to your first business proposal, forcing you to refine your idea until it becomes brilliant. It shows up as the job rejection that leaves you available when your dream opportunity appears unexpectedly. It manifests as the relationship that ends, making space for a love beyond anything you thought was possible. It comes as the illness that forces you to slow down and reevaluate your priorities, leading you to a more balanced and sustainable way of living. It appears as the financial crisis that strips away your attachment to material security and opens you to trust in spiritual abundance. It shows up as the family conflict that pushes you to develop independence and self-reliance. One of the most common forms of cosmic support is what we call divine delays. When something you want takes longer than you think it should, this is not the universe saying no, it's the universe saying not yet. Divine delays protect you from getting something before you're ready, before the timing is perfect, before all the elements are in place for your complete success. I have learned that every delay in my life has been a gift in disguise. When my first attempts to come to America were blocked by visa problems, I was frustrated and discouraged. I had received an invitation to speak at a conference in Boston, and I was so excited to begin sharing these teachings with Western minds. But the visa was denied, and then denied again, and then delayed for months with no explanation. I felt like God was playing a cruel joke on me. I had prepared so carefully, learned English, studied Western philosophy to better understand how to present these ancient truths to modern minds. I had sacrificed and worked so hard to be ready for this opportunity, and now bureaucratic red tape was standing in my way. But those delays forced me to deepen my spiritual realization and develop even clearer ways of teaching these truths to Western audiences. During the months I waited for permission to travel, I wrote extensively, refined my understanding of how to bridge Eastern wisdom and Western practicality, and developed the teaching methods that would later serve millions of students. More importantly, the delays allowed circumstances in America to align perfectly for my arrival. By the time I finally received permission to travel, a spiritual organization had been formed specifically to sponsor my work. Venues had been arranged for my lectures. Students had been prepared through months of the ponces, anticipation to receive these teachings with open hearts and minds. If I had arrived when I originally planned, none of these supporting structures would have been in place. I would have struggled to find audiences, venues, and organizational support. The divine delay had been orchestrating perfect conditions for maximum impact and service. The signs that cosmic support is active in your life are often subtle but unmistakable once you learn to recognize them. Synchronicities increase, the right people appear at the right time. You find exactly the information you need when you need it. Resources become available just as you're about to need them. You begin to feel guided and supported rather than abandoned and alone. Books fall off shelves and open to exactly the page that contains the insight you need. Conversations with strangers provide answers to questions you've been pondering. You think of someone you haven't spoken to in years, and they call you that same day with an opportunity that's perfect for your current situation. You start noticing that obstacles which initially frustrate you often redirect you toward even better opportunities. The job interview that goes poorly leads to a different position that's more aligned with your skills and interests. The relationship that ends painfully creates space for a partnership that supports your highest growth and happiness. Another sign of cosmic support is what I call the easy path phenomenon. When you're truly aligned with the universe's plan for your life, the right actions feel natural and effortless, even when they require great effort. There's a difference between struggling against the current and swimming strongly with the current. Both involve effort, but one feels forced and exhausting while the other feels powerful and energizing. When cosmic support is flowing, doors open that seem permanently closed. People who previously ignored you suddenly become interested in helping. Resources appear from unexpected sources. Solutions to long-standing problems present themselves almost effortlessly. But knowing these laws is only half the secret. Now, I must teach you how to activate them in your life. This brings us to the third sacred law, the law of divine alignment. This law teaches us that the universe can only fully support us when we align our personal will with the cosmic will, when we stop fighting against the current of divine intelligence and learn to flow with it. The difference between struggling and flowing is the difference between trying to swim upstream against a powerful river and learning to navigate skillfully with the current. When you're fighting against cosmic will, everything feels hard, forced, and exhausting. You're constantly pushing against resistance, and even your successes feel hollow or temporary. When you're aligned with cosmic will, there is still effort involved, but it feels inspired, energized, and supported. But here's what most people misunderstand about alignment: it doesn't mean giving up your dreams or accepting less than you desire. True alignment means discovering that what your soul truly wants is even more beautiful than what your ego thinks it wants. It means trusting that the universe's plan for your success is bigger and better than your personal plan. Think of it this way. Your ego is like a person standing on the ground, trying to plan the best route through a complex landscape. You can see only what's immediately in front of you, and your perspective is limited by hills, trees, and buildings that block your view. But the universe is like someone in a helicopter, able to see the entire landscape from above, knowing exactly where the roads lead, where the traffic jams are, where the shortcuts and scenic routes can be found. When you align with cosmic will, you're not giving up your destination. You're trusting a guide who can see the big picture and knows the best route to get you there. You're allowing someone with perfect knowledge to help you navigate toward your highest good. The key to alignment is learning what I call inspired surrender. This means surrendering your timeline and your methods while holding on to your vision and your trust. You stop demanding that your good must come in exactly the way you think it should come, exactly when you think it should arrive, and you start paying attention to the ways the universe is actually trying to deliver your blessings. When you practice inspired surrender, you begin to distinguish between the voice of your ego, which is always anxious and demanding, and the voice of your soul, which is peaceful and trusting. Your ego says, "I must make this happen now or I'll never be happy. I must control every detail or something will go wrong. If this doesn't work out exactly as I planned, it means I'm a failure." But your soul says, "I hold my vision with love and trust the perfect timing of divine intelligence. I am willing to receive my good in whatever form will serve my highest happiness and growth. I release my attachment to specific outcomes and open myself to possibilities even more beautiful than I can currently imagine." This is why meditation and inner stillness are so essential for anyone who wants to live in alignment with cosmic support. In the noise and rush of everyday life, it's almost impossible to hear the subtle guidance of your soul or to feel the gentle current of divine will. But in the silence of meditation, you can feel the difference between forcing and flowing, between ego desire and soul purpose. In deep meditation, you touch a place of such profound peace and wholeness that you realize you don't need anything external to make you happy. This doesn't mean you stop wanting good things in your life, it means you stop desperately needing them. And paradoxically, when you stop desperately needing things, you become energetically available to receive them. When you meditate regularly, you also develop what I call, in divine discrimination, the ability to sense whether a particular desire or goal is coming from your ego's fear and insecurity or from your soul's authentic purpose. Ego desires usually come with a quality of urgency, anxiety, and attachment. They're often motivated by the need to prove something to yourself or others, to fill a sense of lack or inadequacy, or to gain security and control. Soul desires, on the other hand, come with a quality of peace, joy, and natural enthusiasm. They're motivated by love, service, and authentic self-expression. When you feel called toward a soul desire, there's usually a sense of rightness and inevitability, as if this path was always meant to be yours. These truths will transform your understanding, but transformation requires practice. Let me share with you 3 powerful practices that will help you activate these cosmic laws in your daily life and accelerate your journey from struggle to victory. The first practice I call the daily surrender ritual. Each morning when you wake up, before you begin planning and doing, take 5 minutes to align yourself with the cosmic intelligence that wants to support your highest good. This practice shifts you from the energy of demanding and controlling to the energy of receiving and cooperating. Sit quietly and place your hands on your heart. Feel the miracle of your heartbeat, this automatic rhythm that has sustained your life through every moment of joy and sorrow without any effort or control from your conscious mind. Let this remind you that there is an intelligence far greater than your personal understanding that is already taking perfect care of you. Take 3 deep breaths and speak these words with sincere intention. Divine intelligence, I surrender my timeline and my methods to your perfect wisdom. I hold my dreams and visions with love and trust your guidance in bringing them to fulfillment in whatever form will serve my highest good. Show me today how I can cooperate with your plan for my life. Use me as an instrument of your love and service. Open my heart to receive the blessings you want to give me, and give me the wisdom to recognize them even when they come in unexpected forms. Then spend a few moments in silent receptivity, feeling yourself held and supported by the infinite love that is orchestrating your life. Don't try to hear specific guidance or receive dramatic revelations. Simply rest in the awareness that you are not alone, that divine intelligence is aware of your every need and desire, and that this perfect love is working on your behalf, even when you cannot see or understand how. This simple practice reminds your subconscious mind that you are not alone in creating your life. You are partnered with the infinite intelligence that runs the universe. When you start your day from this consciousness, you become available to opportunities and guidance that you would miss if you were operating from fear and the need to control. The second practice is what I call challenge alchemy, the art of transforming every difficulty into spiritual gold. Whenever you face a difficulty or disappointment, instead of immediately reacting with frustration or despair, pause and engage with the experience as a conscious, spiritual practitioner. Take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself these powerful questions. How is this challenge building strength I will need for my future success? What gift or opportunity might be hidden in this apparent setback? What is this experience trying to teach me about myself, about life, about how to live more wisely? How can I cooperate with this experience to extract its maximum value for my growth and evolution? If the challenge involves other people, ask, how is this person serving as a teacher for me, even if they don't intend to? What qualities do I need to develop to handle this situation with grace and wisdom? How can I respond from my highest self rather than my wounded ego? If the challenge involves practical circumstances like money, work, or health, ask, what new skills or resources is this situation calling me to develop? What aspects of my life need to be restructured or improved? How might this apparent limitation actually be redirecting me towards something better? These questions completely change your relationship with difficulties. Instead of being a victim of circumstances, you become an alchemist who transforms lead into gold, who finds the blessing hidden in every challenge. This practice trains your mind to look for the cosmic intelligence behind every experience, rather than judging things as simply good or bad. But remember, practicing challenge alchemy doesn't mean you should passively accept harmful situations or stay in circumstances that are genuinely destructive. Sometimes the hidden gift in a difficult situation is learning to set boundaries, to advocate for yourself, or to leave situations that don't serve your highest good. The practice is about finding empowerment and wisdom in every experience, not about becoming a doormat. The third practice is what I call victory visualization, but it's much more than simple positive thinking. This is a sophisticated spiritual practice that aligns your entire being with the energy of success and abundance. Each evening before sleep, spend 10 minutes feeling deep gratitude for the victories that are already on their way to you. See yourself living your dreams not as something you're desperately trying to make happen, but as something the universe is joyfully preparing to deliver to you. Feel the emotions of already having achieved your highest aspirations, the peace, the joy, the sense of fulfillment and contribution. But here's the key. Don't just visualize external success. Focus primarily on the internal qualities you will embody when you're living your highest potential. See yourself as confident but humble, successful but generous, accomplished but compassionate. Feel yourself radiating the peace and joy that come from knowing you're living in alignment with your soul's purpose. Visualize not just what you will have, but who you will become. See yourself handling success with grace and wisdom. Imagine yourself using your gifts and achievements to lift others and serve the greater good. Feel the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing your life is making a positive difference in the world. This practice programs your subconscious mind to expect success rather than fear failure. It aligns your energy with the vibration of victory, making you a magnet for the people, opportunities, and resources that will bring your dreams into reality. When you go to sleep feeling grateful for victories before they manifest, you wake up with the energy and inspiration to take the actions that will bring them into your experience. But let me share with you some advanced insights that will accelerate your progress even more. As you begin to practice these 3 foundational techniques, you may notice that your relationship with time begins to change. Instead of feeling like you're racing against time or running out of time, you start to feel held by divine timing. You begin to understand that everything in your life is unfolding according to a perfect schedule that takes into account not just your personal desires, but the needs of everyone whose life will be touched by your success. Your victory is not just about you, it's part of a larger tapestry of healing and awakening that the universe is weaving through countless individual lives. This understanding brings tremendous peace because you realize you don't have to force anything to happen. Your job is not to control the universe, but to cooperate with it. You don't have to figure out every detail of how your dreams will manifest. You just need to hold your vision clearly, take inspired action when guidance comes, and trust the cosmic intelligence that knows exactly how to orchestrate miraculous results. As you deepen these practices, you may also notice that your definitions of success and failure begin to evolve. What you once thought of as failure, you start to see as preparation. What you once thought of as delay, you recognize as divine timing. What you once experienced as rejection, you understand as redirection towards something better. You begin to realize that there is no such thing as failure in the universe's plan. There are only experiences that contribute to your ultimate victory. Every seeming setback is actually a setup for something more beautiful. Every closed door is the universe's way of redirecting you toward an open door that leads to greater joy and fulfillment. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating because it means you can stop fighting against your life and start dancing with it. You can stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start recognizing yourself as a co-creator with cosmic intelligence. You can stop feeling anxious about the future and start feeling excited about the surprises the universe has in store for you. But perhaps the most profound transformation that comes from practicing these principles is the development of what I call unshakable inner peace. When you truly understand that the universe is on your side, when you genuinely trust that divine intelligence is orchestrating your highest good, when you feel supported by infinite love even in challenging times, you develop a peace that cannot be disturbed by external circumstances. This doesn't mean you never feel sad, frustrated, or disappointed. You're still human, and human emotions are natural and healthy. But underneath whatever emotions you're experiencing, there's a bedrock of peace and trust that remains constant. You know that whatever you're going through is temporary, and that it's serving your ultimate good in ways you may not yet understand. This unshakable peace becomes your greatest achievement, more valuable than any external success. It's the foundation from which you can build a life of true fulfillment and service. When you're anchored in this peace, you can weather any storm, navigate any challenge, and maintain your vision even when circumstances seem to contradict it. My beloved friend, today you have discovered the most liberating truth in the universe. You are not fighting against life. Life is fighting for you. Every challenge has been your spiritual trainer. Every setback has been your divine setup. Every delay has been perfect timing for something even more beautiful than you originally imagined. The universe doesn't want you to fail, it wants you to win so magnificently that your victory becomes a light for all humanity. You now understand the three sacred laws that govern cosmic success: divine preparation, cosmic support, and divine alignment. You know that what looks like punishment is actually preparation, that what seems like abandonment is actually divine support in disguise, and that what feels like delay is actually perfect timing for your ultimate triumph. You have learned that the universe has been conspiring in your favor all along, building your strength through challenges, clearing space in your life for better things through losses, and guiding you toward your highest destiny through every experience you have had. You are not a victim of circumstances, you are a beloved child of the universe being prepared for greatness. Most importantly, you now have practical tools to align yourself with these cosmic forces and accelerate your journey to victory. The daily surrender ritual connects you with divine intelligence each morning. Challenge alchemy transforms every difficulty into a stepping stone to success. Victory visualization programs your mind for the triumph that is your spiritual birthright. But let me give you one final gift, a perspective that will sustain you through every challenge and accelerate your progress toward the life you're meant to live. I want you to understand that your individual success is not separate from the success of all life. When you win, the entire universe wins. When you fulfill your potential, you contribute to the fulfillment of cosmic purpose. You are not just seeking personal happiness and achievement, you are participating in the universe's own evolution toward greater love, wisdom, and beauty. Your victory is important not just to you, but to everyone whose life will be touched by the person you become when you're living your highest potential. The challenges you've faced have not just prepared you for personal success, they've prepared you to be a source of hope and inspiration for others who are struggling. The strength you've developed through your difficulties is meant to be shared. The wisdom you've gained through your journey is meant to light the way for others who are walking similar paths. This understanding transforms your entire relationship with your dreams and goals. Instead of pursuing success for its own sake, you begin to see your achievement as a form of service. Instead of wanting victory just to prove something or to feel better about yourself, you start to desire success because you know it will enable you to make a greater contribution to the world. When next you face a challenge, remember these sacred words: the universe is on my side. Every obstacle is an opportunity. Every delay is divine timing. Every struggle is sacred preparation. I do not fight against life, I flow with the cosmic current that carries me to my highest good. I am not here to fail, I am here to shine. And when I shine, I help light the way for all humanity. Speak these words with your whole heart, and watch how quickly your life transforms. The path ahead is not about avoiding difficulties or eliminating challenges from your life. It is about understanding that every experience, pleasant or painful, is the universe's way of preparing you for the magnificent destiny your soul came here to fulfill. You are not struggling by accident, you are being polished like a precious diamond until you shine with the full brilliance of your divine nature. Remember that your victory is inevitable, not because life is easy, but because the universe itself is committed to your success. The same intelligence that moves the planets in their courses and causes the flowers to bloom in perfect timing, is personally and intimately involved in every detail of your spiritual journey toward triumph. Every sign, every synchronicity, every moment of guidance is a reminder that you are held in love beyond your human comprehension. You are not alone in your struggles, and you will not be alone in your victory. The infinite intelligence that created you is also orchestrating your success, and this cosmic love will never stop working on your behalf. Trust this process completely. Some days the preparation will feel gentle and supporting. Other days it may feel intense and challenging. Both experiences are perfect parts of your spiritual journey toward ultimate success. Your only job is to stay open, stay grateful, and stay willing to receive the victory that the universe is so eager to give you. The cosmic intelligence that creates galaxies and grows flowers is the same intelligence that is orchestrating your success right now. It knows exactly what you need and when you need it. It has never forgotten you, never abandoned you, never stopped working on your behalf. Every moment of your life, this divine love has been preparing blessings for you that are beyond your current ability to imagine. You are standing at the threshold of the most beautiful chapter of your life. Everything you have experienced up to this moment has been preparing you for what is about to unfold. The universe has been getting you ready for victories so magnificent that they will exceed your wildest dreams. Trust in this truth, align with these cosmic laws, practice these sacred techniques, and prepare to witness miracles in your life. If this message has awakened the victor within you, I invite you to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom that will accelerate your journey to triumph. Give this video a like if you felt the universe speaking directly to your heart, and please, share in the comments one area where you're ready to trust that the universe is preparing your victory. Your sharing may be exactly what another soul needs to hear to keep fighting for their dreams. Until we meet again in the consciousness of infinite possibility, may you walk in absolute certainty that you are loved, supported, and destined for greatness beyond your wildest dreams. The universe wants you to win, dear one, and win you shall. Victory, Amen.